All right, good afternoon. It's 2:05 p.m. on December 14th, 2020. My name is Don Gosney, and I welcome everyone to the meeting of the West Contra Costa Unified Schools District Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Will you all join me in saluting the flag of our nation, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All members of the public are welcome to speak on any issue that is on our agenda. Please use the tool to raise your hand and I will call on you at the appropriate time. We also offer an opportunity under public forum to speak on any issue under the control of the CBOC that is not on the agenda. We request public comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Under public comment, with limited exceptions, the CBOC is not allowed to reply to comments or questions. Because this is an online meeting, I ask that if anyone other than staff wants to speak, they use the raise your hand feature and wait to be called on. Please do not talk over each other. Remember to unmute yourself when you want to speak and then mute yourself when you're done. Just a reminder to please silence all phones not being used in the meeting. Shoo away the dogs and maybe the little kitties and partners that might interrupt the meeting. And don't forget to smile so all of your adoring fans across the world can see how happy you are to be here. Okay. Please bear with me. I've got 5 clipboards in front of me here. Okay. Can we have a roll call, please? We don't have a secretary anymore. Sorry, I guess I get to do that. John Anderson. I can see you, John. I'll just assume you're saying here.
I'm saying here. I was muted.
Maisha Cole.
Present.
Okay. Sally DeWitt. I know you're here, Sally.
Mute.
Guadalupe and Lana, unmute yourself.
Present.
Wonderful. I am here, Lorraine Humes.
Present.
And Anton Younghair.
here.
Okay, we have 7 members. 4 are required for a quorum. We have all 7 here. Now, once again, perfect attendance. Outstanding, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. I hope you've all had a chance to look at the agenda. Is there, if there's any problem with the agenda, now is the time to say it. Otherwise, we'll just accept it as it's presented.
Mr. Chairperson,
Yes.
this is Anton. I would like to pull off item J, the requests log off the consent calendar.
All right. Item J is off the consent calendar. When we come up to that time, then we'll just address it. Hang on, I'm writing things down. Okay, anything else? All right, move on to item E. Public comments for items not on the agenda. Do we have anybody that, since we don't have any forms to fill out, I'm not seeing any hands that are raised. Does anybody have anything to say that is not on the agenda? Okay. We're going to move on to item number F, please, where we have the election of the CBOC officers for 2020-21. I'm going to turn that over to staff to take care of so we can at least have the perception of honesty and transparency.
I don't think there's not any,
There's nothing attached on, so.
Well, no, there was just, you got, what's on the agenda? You just open nominations for the chair, have the election for it,
All right, well,
the vice chair, and then the recording secretary.
So let's open nominations for the chair.
This is Anton Young here. I would like to nominate Don Gosney for chairperson. I think he's done an outstanding job.
I'll second that.
Are there any other nominations for chair? Hearing none. Don, do you accept the nomination as chair for the CBOC?
Oh, why not?
Do we need to vote on that, or?
You can just call a white ballot.
Okay, so having no other candidates, Don, you're the chair for the next year. Okay, moving on to vice chair. Do you have any nominations for vice chair?
I can't find the raise my hand button. There, oh, there it is. No, I still can't find it. But I would like to nominate Guadalupe and Lana, please.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
I'll second her nomination. Lorraine here.
Okay, hearing no other nominations. Lupe, do you accept the nomination for vice chair?
I do.
Okay, we have a vice chair. Secretary, nominations for secretary.
Once again, my hand is up. I would like to nominate Anton Young here.
Yeah, this is Anton. I would not accept that nomination.
Do we have any other nominations for secretary?
Sally, I think are you trying to talk? We can't hear you.
I can't see Sally, but is she muted?
Sally's trying to say something, but I'm not sure what.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so apparently the headphones are not working as a microphone. Okay, so let's see, where were we? Nominations, yes. I would like to nominate John Anderson for secretary.
Are there any other nominations for secretary?
So I will second that nomination.
John, do you accept the nomination for secretary?
Oh, I'll say reluctantly.
Great, absolutely.
All
Wholehearted.
right, so we have a
Like
secretary.
Sorry to spring
All right,
that on
Don,
you,
I'm gonna turn
John,
it back over
but
to you.
Well,
yay.
All right, Don, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. All right, then we'll just go ahead. First off, congratulations to all the victors here. Or no, I'm sorry. Congratulations to all the the suckers. All right. We'll turn things over to staff for the district reports, item number G.
Okay, well, as soon as we get there.
Okay, it doesn't want to do the link, but that's okay. We will just scroll.
We have technology.
There we go.
All right, facilities, a master plan update. Can we go to the next slide? So I'll go ahead and go through these projects, and then we'll go through the project status reports behind this. So Riverside Soil Stabilization Project. At the last board meeting on November 18th, we awarded a contract to Oversight Construction for the design build project for Riverside. So currently we're working with Over on the kickoff of this particular project. More to come in the coming months. This will be a fast-paced project. I believe everybody's aware this is a soil stabilization project to stabilize the liquefaction along the creek edge on Riverside. Michelle Obama campus update. So this project is now complete. Overall construction is in the process of just finishing up their punch list items on site. We have a furniture move-in date from the Portola / Wilson temporary campus location. Furniture will move on the December 22nd when we return from the Christmas holiday break, Michelle Obama will be in full swing on their new campus. Richmond High critical needs. This project is currently.
Louis,
Yes.
you say full swing. That's full swing without students, right?
Full swing without students, yes.
Okay. A modified
Returning
form.
the same capacity we have. But yes, for those that are currently working on site, they will begin to return to the campus back on Michelle Obama new campus. So Richmond High critical needs. This is the reconstruction or construction of the new gymnasium building. Seismic retrofit project for the old science building, and wrapped into this project, as well as the new health center on the campus. So we're currently on schedule. The science building has been completed. The last remaining piece of that was the elevator. Elevator is still underway under fabrication, and we are on schedule to open the gym in February of 21. For E-rate 23, this project had been on hold pending approval or for funding. Federal funding has come in. We are working with a contractor. Just to remind everybody, this contract was awarded many months ago, and we were just waiting on funding to come in from the federal government for E-rate. We've been notified that we're approved, and so we are now working with Decatech, who is the contractor on this particular phase of the E-rate 23. To begin construction after the holidays. And then we have, moving down, we have Lake, and this is the campus rebuild project. Last time we reported, we were actually out with an RFQ to qualify design build entities in preparation of issuing an RFP for pricing. The RFQ has been in and answered. We're in the process of reviewing those. Shortly after the holiday, we will be releasing the RFP for the construction phase with bids to come in the early spring. Fairmont has been one of our projects that has been ongoing. We've been doing a bunch of, if you want to call it, cleanup projects behind the main critical needs project we did last year. We're calling this phase 5. We have bid award going to the board. Or actually went to the board, I'm sorry.
Going to the board.
We're going to the board. So the date on here is actually, is received on the 8th, it's going to the board on Wednesday night. This is actually to install new flooring in the portables on campus. And I believe there's 10 of those that are receiving new floors. Moving down the list, we have Riverside site work. So Riverside is actually, we broke this project into two pieces. We have the soil stabilization component that's a design build entity. Because of the fast-paced nature and the work involved with the soil stabilization, and the need to have those plans move expeditiously between CGS and DSA, there's a component of this that we'll be demoing out an existing play structure for the kinder, as well as an outdoor learning area. In conversation with the principal, it's been decided that we would go ahead and actually break this into two pieces to go ahead and design the outdoor learning space and new play structure element as its own project. This will help us through DSA with not getting slowed down with accessibility requirements. And it is a unique project all of its own that we didn't want to strap onto the design build entity with their focus mainly on the soils work. So currently, we have an architect of record for the original design work, which is SBA Architects. So we'll be modifying their contract to come back and do this design work, which will have its own timeline, and we'll update you as that moves forward. Korematsu, the fall protection for the green roofs. We are still tied up in DSA. We have all approvals except for structural. We're waiting on the final structural review to come out. Pinole Valley for the bleachers and restoration. So as we've talked about before, the fields project for the new baseball field, stadium improvements has been DSA approved. We're waiting on the final phase for the actual bleachers to come out of DSA, and they're tied up in structural still. We're hoping that was going to come out this month, although with the holidays pending, it's probably going to be the first part of January before we see that, and then that project will bid as a whole. Last week, we spent some time with the school community at the athletics and the principal, going through the plans, just refreshing them on what we're building, our anticipated timeline coming forward. And then the other awards we have out are the Cameron Critical Needs Project. We went out with RFQP for architectural services. We'll be awarding the contract for Cameron and Collins, which those particular projects are mostly environmental projects, adding air conditioning, restroom improvements to those two facilities. And Shannon will be bringing to the board for award on the 16th as well. And the Shannon project is a new multi-purpose room to replace the portable building that they currently have that is their multi-purpose room on the campus. And then we're getting ready to release after the new year the RFQP for architectural services for Kennedy and Hercules. Moving on.
All right, Louis, before you get to that point, just a question for everybody here. On my screen, I am not seeing a raise your hand feature. Am I the only person, or is?
No, you're not. I quite frankly haven't seen that feature since I've been on these calls.
You don't see participants at the bottom?
I see participants, but when I click it, I don't see a raise your hand feature in there.
Oh, okay.
I see it. Are you saying you see
I
it?
You
see
do,
it on
there
the
is a-
left,
there.
bottom left.
Yeah, I see it also. It's on the left. Right next to the, yes. It's to the left of yes.
Yeah, I
Okay,
don't have a lefty yes.
And you got to scroll down to the bottom of the participants, I think.
Well, I scroll down anymore, I'm on my lap. It looks like it's a problem just for some of us and not all of us. So
yeah.
if you've got the if you got the raise your hand, why don't you go and raise that hand? I mean, I've got a yes or a no. So if you want to raise your hand and you don't have the raise your hand function, just put
Raise your
yes.
hand.
Well, or press yes, because I mean I can only see four faces right now. So okay, Sally.
Sally has her hand up.
I'm seeing, yeah, Sally, that's what I call her. Now she doesn't. Okay.
I was
Thank you.
just
Sorry
raising
for-
my hand in order to let you know that I had the command there.
Okay.
Sorry, misunderstood.
All right. Go ahead, Louis. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay. That's okay. So if there's no questions, we'll move on to the next portion of this. So again, Michelle Obama, next slide. So just kind of walking through some of the areas of the school, as this will be one of our last reports on Michelle Obama. Outdoor learning suites area. These are actually seating pebbles for the students as they would go out underneath the shade structures on the 41st side of the street. Again, this is just an outdoor learning environment for the students.
Hey, Louis, what are these made out of?
Yeah. You know, I'm not sure, Don, if they're actually fiberglass and then they end up filling with sand, or there's some other type of lightweight concrete and then they're filled. But they won't move very easy.
Okay. I of course, worried about them moving, but also worried about them being vandalized or even stolen.
Yeah, they won't steal them. They had a very difficult time moving them around. But they are a man-made product.
Now it's a challenge, huh? Okay.
I would say for most students anyways. But they are socially distanced so that we make sure that if they go, when the students return and they're out in the indoor learning environment, that they do provide adequate spacing in between the seating areas for the students to provide the social distancing that we would need required for those areas. Next slide. A learning suite. This is for the 3rd, 4th graders. Again, just we've seen some of these photos before, but now as the site is really, the furniture is in place, I'm just waiting to be moved in. You can see how it all kind of comes together with the soft seating, the benches. This is the learning suite, which leads into the flex area, which is in the background, or the project room, I should say, in the background. Yeah, you can see the project room by the yellow. Then the outside, the exterior landscaping has been completed, the yard, all play structures are in. The one thing we have been waiting on, and they were trying to work on it last week, was with favorable weather. There is some color striping that goes onto the playground itself. Because of the cooler temperatures we have, it may not be conducive to get that work done until later this spring when the temperatures begin to rise again. And so we've had discussions with the contractor about that as well. So next slide. Again, this is in the kinder yard. We have some artificial grass on this particular site, just another seating mound covered area for outdoor learning adjacent to the play structure. And we have one of our, this is actually very beautiful. This is a synthetic lawn. It's a sand and a infill with a, it's not a rubber like you would see on a sports field, but it does have an infill material to weight it down. But very nice with a running track around the outer edge of the field. So students will never worry about muddy fields again. Next slide.
I'm sorry, Louis. I'm looking at
Yes.
the two photographs here on the running track. And on the lower track, of course, you got a curve around the bottom of it. But on the upper track, it looks like it's a sharp edge. So, I mean, is this a kind of a semi-oval, or what am I looking at on that top picture on the left? Is that just a section that is extra section that is
You can see that there's a white line that goes actually around the green turf itself. That's where you see that 90-degree sharp corner, but the track actually goes out around the play structure. In the background, the blue play structure, it actually goes out around it. So it is kind of a semi-oval track.
okay? Thank you.
Right, so this corner isn't really the edge of the track. It keeps going straight. It's just the edge of the grass.
I think that corner actually is that upper corner right of the play structure. Okay, next slide. Richmond High, again, our new gymnasium and retrofit project. Next slide. And here's just a photo of the gymnasium. Last time we were talking about this building was going under waterproofing. So the exterior waterproofing had been applied, and this is one of the first coats of stucco. Now the building is completely waterproofed, and we're just waiting between cure times to continue to work on the exterior finishes. Next slide.
Louis, on that,
Yes.
it says auxiliary gym. Is that a second gym they have, or what do you mean by auxiliary gym?
It is a second gym. So
Okay.
typically our high schools will have a practice gym and a main gym, if you will. So the photo you're looking at right now looks towards the science building, and you can see the new elevator in the background going in.
Yeah.
These planter areas are actually our biodetention, stormwater retention basins that were built to process our stormwater. And then if you look all the way to the left, that taller building there, that is actually the primary gym for Richmond High.
Oh, okay.
So in the gymnasium that was seismically deficient, that was torn down, it actually had the girls' locker room, women's coach's office in it, dance room, and weight room. So the new auxiliary gym has the girls' locker room now, coach's office, weight room for the campus, as well as the dance room brought back. So the same amenities that were in the older gym have been reproduced in the new gym.
So
Next slide.
the older gym has already been there. That wasn't one of the critical needs projects.
The older gym, Lorraine, depends on which one you're talking about, but if you're talking about there were two gyms on campus. The
Right.
oldest gym is the one we tore down, and so it was original to the campus. It was a non-reinforced masonry building. Next slide.
And it was actually older than the main campus. So it was the oldest building on campus.
But the
And this is just
auxiliary
looking-
gym is the one you're building.
Yes, it is. So the primary gym is what you see in this photo on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
That tall building right there, that's the primary gym.
Right.
And so that particular gym will have all your bleachers. It has the larger gymnasium. The new gym we're building has a full court in it, but it has a reduced area for bleacher seating. So it would be, wouldn't be used in large events where they're hosting other teams on campus. Again, we're looking from the science building back towards the new gymnasium and the field in the rear behind it.
Right.
Next slide.
Oh, sorry, Louis, before you go
So
there,
this is-
I'm sorry, you mentioned locker rooms. Keep in mind, I'm an old guy. We have a different idea about what locker rooms are used for. Do we even, I mean, I understand for the sports teams playing against each other, they're going to have locker rooms, but for physical education, first off, they even have physical education classes? And do they use the locker rooms for that? Do the students actually change clothes or anymore?
Yes, they do. So in a traditional setting, they would be changing to go out for PE, if you would. So they do use locker rooms for that.
And do we provide shower facilities for them on that for PE?
Yes, there are showers within the girls' locker room. They are reduced. They're not what you used to see in years before, where you would have, capable of 30 people in the showers. I believe this particular has 3 or 4 showers in it.
Whoa.
Individual one, accessibility, and then I think 2 or 3 primary showers for student use or athletic use.
Is the men's
And that's
locker
been the
room,
model. What's that?
is for the men's locker room, we have similar number of showers?
It is basically a more, what I would say, traditional build from years ago. I mean, it has a much larger shower area.
Okay.
Although a lot of it is cordoned off.
Yeah, I would say its frequency of use of showers is very limited these days, probably with the exception of probably athletics.
Yeah, I'm thinking, like a football team has quite a few members of the team, and just have to wait in line 30 or 40 minutes to be able to shower after a game or a practice. Well, just talking. Thank you.
Yeah. They are available for those that want to use a shower, though. So this is just a photo of the inside of the gym. The finishes are underway. They've just completed the painting. You can see the new backboards are being installed, and the mechanical ducting that circles around the interior of the room. You can see that silver finish above the scoreboard. That'll eventually be painted as that completes out. Next slide. In the upper left-hand corner is actually the interior now, parking area. It shows just the utilities are in place for the new health center that'll be going in along 23rd Street. And then in the right-hand photo, this is actually a photo from the factory that was in. So this is the interior shot of the new health center itself as they finish up the buildings and prep them for delivery. And I believe their delivery is scheduled for next week. We're going to start to see these buildings arrive on campus. Next slide. And Riverside Soil Stabilization Project, we've kind of talked about this one. Next slide. So just to give you a better idea of what's actually happening, so you can see what we'll be doing is actually putting in shear panels, or what they call them, and these are basically they'll be mixing concrete with the soil to build the shear panels, which will stabilize the movement of the earth between in an earthquake event as it would move towards the creek itself. And that's what you see those blue circle diagrams are the number of drillings that we would have. And the photo of this machine is it's actually a mixing machine. It would be mixing the concrete with the soil to create these concrete barriers, if you will, to bridge the liquefiable soil between the campus and the creek.
Louis, can you go back one photograph, please? To the
Sure.
aerial picture.
One more back.
Yes.
Yes.
The tree area where the word or phrase Wildcat Creek is across, is that school property or is that belong to somebody else?
Yeah. No, that's school property.
The
So
tree.
we follow along the creek itself.
Okay. Well, yeah, we can't really see the creek here.
Yeah, a lot of tree cover.
So in that, Louis, on that picture, your photo that's up right now, where are the ground improvements being installed relative to just in that area alone?
And down here.
So down
So
basically
so they come off
along, basically from essentially the street, Amador Street, that going up and maybe around the corner to protect that extra building?
Yes, they don't quite go as far as pretty much where the K is in Creek. That's about the extent. If we go, I'm not quite sure if we actually extend quite that far. But yes, John, it goes up beyond the edge of the building perimeters in order to build up.
Yeah, so you just have one row of these?
Well, there's that. Well, you go to the next slide, and you can see that there's
Okay,
four.
there's your plan.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see how those particular panels are the blue, the green, and then the red.
So it's not a continuous column. They're using just basically this is reinforcement, and then how deep do they go?
So right now they're estimating, I believe, there's going to be 25 feet.
All right. It seems to me that I've looked at that site. The bigger issue for me there wouldn't necessarily be a liquefaction. It would be possibly undermining of that bank over time. And that building sits pretty close. So this also provides some stabilization for that as well.
It would, and historically over time, there's been very little erosion, and they're far enough back from the creek, edge of creek. There's a high level of comfort along that we won't be building something that'll be washed away unless there's some drastic change in the way Wildcat Creek actually drains.
I've seen it happen in the hills where you can have a mild earthquake and then the rain comes and that basically loosens it up enough. So it sounds like, you know, I look at that as solving or providing two measures for you. So, okay.
While we're still on Riverside, this is a school that's relatively close to me, and I've got to drive by Amador to get onto the I-80 all the time. And from time to time, I see the graffiti that we often see at our schools. And I'll snap a photograph of it. I send the word off to Lewis, and within a day or 2 days, he's got a team out there to eradicate that graffiti. Because we all know that the best way to stem the flow of graffiti is to get rid of it. Don't let it sit up there and be an invitation to other people. I just wish that you could touch on that pedestrian overcrossing that belongs to Caltrans, and the sound wall that belongs to Caltrans, and even some of the utility boxes on the corner that are just magnets for gang graffiti. Because at least the Riverside is very good, and I thank you, sir.
No problem. And then, Alan, could you just touch on what we talked about was kind of the phase 2 project for Riverside, the play structure and the shade?
Right. So part of the change that's going to happen is currently there's a play structure here that's undersized and a outdoor dining area that's also undersized. So the plan is that the outdoor dining area will actually be moved to this larger area, and the play structure will be moved out to the main playground space. And not moved, a new play structure will be provided, and this play structure will be taken down, which we received a credit for because we didn't need to protect it during the construction component. So we will also be looking at a garden area, potentially in where the dining facility was. So the dining's moving to the play structure. The play structure is going to be rebuilt out in the main playground, and so it's kind of a domino effect, but it will provide several new locations for outdoor education.
Ellen, are we repurposing the play structure, or is this we trash that and building a new one?
Yeah, the play structure is towards its end of life anyways, so it's not in a place that relocating would be a good idea. So we will provide a new play structure in a new location.
Thank you.
Okay, and that was that secondary contract I was talking about with SBA Architects. So next slide. So Fairmont, currently what's happening in Fairmont right now, we're working on the interior spaces. This happens to be the primary corridors in the 400 and 500 building. They used to have some outdated pin board along these walls, on the lower walls. I want you to kind of highlight that.
Yeah.
So we've taken all that down that was outdated. Some of it was peeling, it was pretty unsightful. We've installed new sheetrock, finishing that. We'll be putting wainscoting on the lower level of the walls, and then the upper portion of the walls will be painted with new pinboard installed, so each classroom will have a location for them to actually display their classroom work.
And they were actually installed on Friday, and so I went out and saw it this morning, and it looks gorgeous.
Oh, good.
So I think, you know, those folks returning to Fairmount will be pleasantly surprised to see the amount of improvement work that has been done on the interior of this campus over the last several months. Next slide.
Let's move it on to the next.
Okay.
Are we good to keep
Are there
going?
Any questions? If not, we'll move on to the master plan update. Hearing none, Ellen?
Okay, so the facilities master plan is still moving along. Just as a reminder of the game plan, so we are assessing the prioritization right now. There's also activity going on to try to identify the HVAC and technology needs, which was identified as part of the Measure R bond sale. And once we have the prioritization complete, we will develop options to be able to update our implementation plan for the 2016 FMP. Once that gets updated, then we can complete the critical needs projects and continue on with our rebuild program. The prioritization committee has met a total of 3 times. Our next meeting is tomorrow night at 5 p.m. It is via Zoom. If you would care to join and listen in, there is a public comment at the end. So far, we've reviewed the history of the prioritization process and that original criteria that was established as part of the 2016 master plan. We also reviewed the community input from the survey that took place early in the fall. And from that, we created almost 50 criteria that could be considered. And so the first round of reduction has occurred and was completed at the last meeting. So we're down to 23. However, our goal is 15 or fewer. So tomorrow night, the game plan is to try to get us down to that 15 or fewer criteria. And then to also discuss the metrics for any new criteria that we're using that wasn't part of the 2016 process, because they need to be defined as measurable metrics so that we can use it to compare the different school sites. We do plan on rolling this out to the broader community in the new year, so that there'll be more to come on how that's going to work. So the next step is completing that prioritization process, gathering data for the HVAC and technology components that were part of the district-wide initiative, and create options to combine the different elements together to create our implementable plan. Any questions?
All right, then we have our standard set of reports. Again, I won't go into detail on these. If there's any questions, we can address them. Otherwise, moving on, we'll move into our financials.
Good afternoon, everyone. Going through our financial reports tonight, I'll just provide a couple of brief updates. For those of you who may be less familiar with our financial reports, I'll give a brief summary of what each report represents. So our first report is the consolidated budget status report, and this represents the entire bond program. This goes back to the beginning of the program, and so this provides you with legacy information at all of the sites throughout the district. And then if we move through to page 38, this is a similar version of the report, also the consolidated budget status report, but this report only reports on the 2016 facilities master plan project. And so this is something that can be tied to the implementation of the 2016 Facilities Master Plan. Because of our process of setting up this project, or setting up these projects and some of the commitments that we've made, there's some additional budget information that's available on this report for the more recent projects completed, ongoing, or future. And then moving on to page 40, this is our bond program spending to date by site. The challenge here was to try to put the entire program on one sheet of paper. Turns out we needed the front side and the back side of that sheet of paper, so it is actually a 2-page report. This is essentially the bond program at a glance, and on a monthly basis, we provide updated information to identify where we are in terms of commitments and budget balance. Turning to page 42, this looks just like that report, but it's a little bit different. One of the processes that we have in place is anytime there is a budget increase or decrease, it goes before the board for approval. And so this is the crises that will go before the board this Wednesday. And that's why you'll see under the title, it says Bond Program Site Budget Authorization. And then you'll notice on page 42, Ellen, if you can, you'll see at the bottom of that page, Crespi Middle School is the school that is highlighted in red. We will be recommending to the board on Wednesday that we return the remaining budget at Crespi, which is $130,000 to the fund balance. This has been one of our guiding philosophies through the implementation of the Facilities Master Plan, was that if we have remaining funds and we've completed the intent of the master plan, that we recommend that the budget balance be returned to fund balance. And so that's why you'll see here Crespi is identified in red. And then you'll see under the proposed adjustment presented, the third column, it's got the board date being December 16th, and then it shows that remaining budget allocation for Crespi. So that project's now complete. We've done the financial reconciliation and closeout of all contracts, and so this will be our recommendation.
Someone has their hand up.
Okay, and we have a hand raised.
You have 3 of them, Sally, then Anton, then myself.
Okay, terrific.
Okay. This has to do with the facility master plan and the reports that we're looking at right now, and I'm happy to wait until Melissa is done showing us all of the reports. Or I could ask my question now or make my statement or whatever.
Totally up to you.
Yeah, it has to do with wondering if there has been any internal discussion around the proposal that the facility master plan, as it's being revamped now, which is great. And I'm so pleased to see all of this, including the report. So please don't misunderstand anything I'm saying. This all looks very good. But I have been disappointed that not all of the projects have been included in the facility master plan, and I'm wondering if there's any internal discussion on that point, so that you can say to the general public, the facility master plan is showing our whole plan as a facilities group for our schools, which apparently is not the case.
You're absolutely right. We don't have anything to show for at this time, but there are internal conversations and work that is being done. Part of it is a matter of priority. So right now, the major priority for Ms. Mejia Hooper is updating the facilities master plan in regards to the passage of Measure R and bringing that information to the board. And really the priority for our Director of Maintenance and Operations, our interim director right now, is all about facility readiness. And so, and then my big push is that I need to finalize the PMP. But we have had initial strategy conversations and also working with Ms. Shaw about looking about different ways that we could report those kinds of things. And I think that that's going to be an effort that we're going to be able to much better tackle when we get to the spring, just
Okay.
because of some of the other priorities that we're working on right now. But absolutely, I think that the comments are appreciated and they've been well received, and we can understand that, you know, we serve a very large district, and so while we're talking about the bond program here, there are a lot of broader conversations that need to be had and a lot more information that we can provide to the community. So it is a bit of a to be continued, but it is something that we're absolutely talking about internally.
Thank you very much, Melissa. I'm happy to hear that. If you accomplish that, and if this becomes, I could see this becoming a model across California and maybe beyond. You know, that the facility master plan would be the facility master plan, irrespective of funding sources. Of course, the bulk of it is bond related, but not all of it is. So good job. And then it would all be included in your PMP. Would be excellent.
Lorraine, you have your hand up?
On page 33 on the consolidated budget status report, we have Highland Elementary School. Now, I look over across, I see it's 72% completed, and the only thing that hasn't been done, it looks like, is the water and power upgrade. But they're not mentioned in the status report. Where are we on that?
So Highland is one of these projects that, while it's a critical needs project, and the basic scope of the critical needs project was to take care of the sewer line, if you go back to the master plan and address it. Although we do, you know, and we've brought this to the committee before, we do know we may have issues with the water line. We've had several breaks in the past, and it should be replaced and or upgraded, as well as the incoming power for the site. But because Highland sits in this area between the critical needs project and the major R projects moving forward with the new updating the master plan, until the prioritization committee is done and the rebuild projects are identified and prioritized, Highland kind of sits in this area where we're not quite sure how that's going to come out. And so that project is on hold right now, depending on how Highland fares in the overall process.
Very good, thank you.
I hope that answers the question.
Anton had his hand up, and then I have my hand up.
I would like to refer to page 50, which is the financial impact report 13 analysis. And specifically, I would like to refer to the $350,000 settlement on the Nystrom closed project. In looking back at the expenditures on this project, I went back to March of this year and noted that the budget was $47,800,000 and the expenditures were the same, $47,800,000, and there was no balance. I noticed on the current report those same numbers. Question: where did this $350,000 get paid from? Was it approved by the board? And where is it on your financial reports?
So the $350,000 is a settlement for the Nystrom project, but it was a settlement that was made with the Seville Group, and they were paid out of the central cost. The Nystrom project is also closed, and that's why you'll see that on the financial reports, those numbers have remained the same. And so because the Nystrom project is closed, the $350,000 settlement then becomes a revenue for the program and goes back to the bond fund.
So do I understand that you're saying the Seville Group paid it?
Yes,
that is correct.
It's a settlement, yes.
So the settlement was assessed against the district, but the district received reimbursement from Seville? Is that what happened?
The parties of the settlement are the district and the Seville Group, and so they provided the part of the terms of the settlement was the $350,000, which we have received. So we're indicating receipt of those funds and then returning them to the bond fund. The reference to the Nystrom project is the settlement was related to the Nystrom project, but for the services that Seville performed, that was charged against the central cost.
And
But
then
this settlement itself
where
is
was
in
that
regards
approved?
to the-
That was approved by the board in closed session?
Yes.
And then was that reported out? What date was it reported out?
I'll have to confirm the date for you. I don't have that off the
But
top of my head.
But it was,
I
it
want
was,
to say,
it was approved by the
Earlier.
board.
Yeah, October or November.
I think it was October.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I had one
Well,
question.
Anton, a little sneak peek. I'm not quite there yet, but go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I noticed that too, thanks. On the report you just made on Crespi, you talked about money that you had, well, you failed to spend, and you were going to ask the permission of the board to return it to the fund?
So
That doesn't seem right.
anytime,
Let me finish the question. I said, what happens if they say no? You have to go out and spend it?
so all of the project budget increases and decreases require the approval of the board. And so this is the form that we've put together, and we've been bringing, I think, since 2016, so that we could be more transparent about any movement in a project budget. And there have been conversations in the past about, is it right to return that to fund balance or not? Ultimately, you know, it is the approval of the board. Our recommendation, and as many of you have seen over the years, we have budgets that were put together in 2016 based on the best information that we had then. Some of our budgets needed to be increased in order to cover the cost of the project. Some of our budgets have been reduced. And on almost all of our projects, we've been able to return some funds back to the fund balance. You may recall Crespi is one of the projects where we had to increase the project budget in order to do the project. And so we are very proud that we do have funds remaining at the end of the project. And therefore our recommendation will continue to be to return them to the fund balance so that they can continue to cover all of the work that we have ahead of us.
Okay.
So without any other questions, are there any more questions?
Anton, if you're done, put your hand down.
So moving on to page 44, this is report 13. And so on the front page of report 13 is basically a one-page summary in terms of where we are with the overall program. And then you'll notice along the right-hand side of the page, there's a number of notes. Those notes then correspond to the backup detail for each one of those items. So as you flip through the report, for example, on page 45, you'll find all of the detail that makes up that singular line item on the front page of report 13. And thanks to an expert budget analysis CBOC member, if you jump to page 50, we have a report that really captures the change from one month to another. And this has very quickly become one of my favorites because it really captures the changes and the activity that the month of November represents. So as you'll see here, we had a burn rate in November of about 2.2 million. And we completed the first quarter. And so you'll see some of the pooled interest earnings as well as the LAIF interest. And then the settlement all identified there as increased revenue for the program. And then you'll also see the adjustment where we've taken out our assumption of what that revenue would be because we now have it booked in the system. And so this really captures the change from October to November. And then our last financial report starts on page 51, and this is our AP checklist, our accounts payable checklist. And so this is a line item identification of every single check issued by the bond program. Next page. as well as behind it, the reconciliation of things that don't necessarily show up in a check, like, for example, retention withheld and payroll. And thanks to another financial guru on the CBOC, the third page of the report now, which is the detail that identifies for you the FTE amount budgeted for each position that charges time to the bond program, the adjustment based on the daily timesheet that is submitted, and what that adjusted amount is. So not only do we reconcile all of our accounts on a monthly basis, but we also do a reconciliation of our payroll costs such that the bond program is only charged for the hours that were spent in accordance with essentially the program and project management of the bond funded projects. And that concludes my report today.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on any part of the staff reports? Nothing from anybody. Okay, let's go on to item H on the agenda. This is committee reports number 1, our 2019 annual report and update. And I'm going to turn the show over to Lorraine Humes and Sally DeWitt.
Thank you, Don.
Talk about the annual report. I'll talk about the timeline.
Right. So I think I'm unmuted. Yes, I am. Isn't that remarkable? Okay, so let's see, we had comments from Mac Moore, and we had those twice, and they were highly detailed, and we went over them in detail. They had to do primarily with the first, if I remember correctly, it was the executive summary, and some of the details around the description of the budget. So Mac had very sharp eyes when it came to how we were describing the budget, whether it was a total budget or whether it was a bond fund budget, whether it related to legacy projects or not legacy projects, and so forth. So the changes that we made were in the first section for the most part. Hang on, I'm trying to get back to it so I can speak with some little bit more precision. So the latest comments came from page number 3. So I'll give you an example. And we're going to ask for 2 amendments to this version of the annual report that you're looking at in the agenda packet. We made 2 more changes based on Mac's eagle eyes when it came to the description of the budgets and so forth. So we have actually a handout in that regard. So maybe the best thing to do is just to look at that handout, and that'll give you an idea of the kind of changes that we've been making. This is just the second set. So if you could put that handout, if we were all together in the same room, I would have brought it as a paper handout, but unfortunately we're not there. So there it is. Okay. So I am referring here to, let's see, the 4th line on, it says amend the 2019 annual report, page 3. So that's the page number in the actual annual report, which is shown in the agenda on page 57. And the second paragraph on that report is shown here. I grayed out the first part of that paragraph because it was only the last sentence that required changing. So that last sentence example reads, at the end of 2019, the budget for Wilson Elementary School replacement project was $44.1 million. That was really incorrect because the replacement project itself is just a sub-project of the total project called Wilson Elementary School. And so we changed the last sentence to, at the end of 2019, the bond fund budget, that was another description change of the budget. Bond fund budget for Wilson Elementary School totaled $44.1 million, including the campus replacement project and other legacy projects. In the executive summary, we didn't want to confuse the reader with too much detail, so we didn't include the precise budgets for those sub-projects within the Wilson Elementary School total. And the numbers that we used in the executive summary and actually throughout the report, for the most part, I can't think of any exceptions to this, we used the total budgets that can be that are reflected and shown and tied to two basic financial reports, which we've seen from Melissa. One of them is report 2, which shows the total budget, excuse me, total bond fund budget since the beginning. And then the consolidated budget status report breaks that down between the facility management program, facility management plan, and the legacy projects. So that's how we did it. Let me see, was there anything else to say about that? Oh yeah, the bond fund budget. Oh yes. The beginning of that sentence, it says at the end of 2019, the bond fund budget for Wilson Elementary School. This goes against my personal grain in the sense that the facility master plan and the PMP, etc. I'm going to sound like a broken record. I hope to goodness that eventually we don't distinguish between the bond fund budget for a particular school and any other source of revenue. It should just be the total budget for Wilson Elementary School. But in this particular case, there is a distinction because the board has approved the expenditure of supplemental funds, which are defined as developer fees in the multi-million-dollar range for both Michelle Obama School, formerly known as Wilson, and Richmond High School. And so the way that we dealt with that in this report was the same way we mirrored the way that the district is handling it in their financial reports, in the sense that these supplemental funds are noted in report 13, but report 13 is all about the bond fund budget. So the total expenditure shown on the first page of report 13 and the bond funds themselves are being reported in report 13 on page 1. So we tie to the financial reports around the bond fund budget. And those are being reported in the PMP reports, again, the ones that I had referenced before. So that's why we noted here the bond fund budget for Wilson Elementary School. And we're not taking it beyond that here in the executive summary. Those notations are made later in the in this report simply as footnotes or addendums or additional notes, but they really don't have to do with the bond fund. Have to do with Wilson, but not the bond fund. And then, so the next amendment down, amendment number 2, again, we changed the last sentence. This is actually the next bullet item in the executive summary after the first one that I showed. And this one has to do with Crespi. And here again, we were precise in saying at the end of 2019, a total of 6.5 million in bond funds had been allocated to Crespi. Didn't break it down. If you look at consolidated budget status report, 6.5 is the total from the beginning of the bond fund, but I think it's 5.3, if I remember correctly, million has to do with the facility master plan and the seismic upgrade project. So we changed that to, by the end of 2019, a total of 6.5 million in bond funds had been allocated to Crespi, including critical needs and legacy projects. So that's the explanation for the two amendments. Are there any questions? Well then, if there are no more questions or comments, then I think we're ready to call for approval on this annual report.
Is there a motion to approve the annual report, including the two amendments that Sally just went through?
Here's Lorraine, I so move.
Is there a second?
And I second Dawn.
Sorry, who was that?
Lupe.
Lupe.
All right, is there any discussion of this, the annual report with the amendments? I'm going to put out one thing. I want to thank everybody that was involved with it. I know this is not an easy project. A lot of different viewpoints, as we've seen. That's why we've brought it back time and again. It's a kind of thing that people will look at it later on and say, well, what's the big deal? They just threw it together. They don't have any idea just what it took. And I appreciate all the efforts that everybody made on it. Any other questions?
Dawn, I'm going to, as one of the co-chairs of this committee, along with Lorraine, I also want to second that. It's a huge project. It really is. And especially the process that we have to use, given the Brown Act. And everybody was very careful about that. And it went smoothly. And I have a feeling we've set our model up and it will go smoothly from here on. So many thanks.
All right, then we'll go ahead and proceed with a vote, a roll call vote. We don't have a secretary right now. John, sorry you don't take office until next month. So I will wear two hats on this. I'll just go through the list I've got on my paper. Yes, no, abstain. Lupe. Guadalupe?
Yes.
All right. All right, Anton,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Maisha,
Yes.
and I am abstaining. Okay, so it passes 8-0, 1-0. Well, I'm sorry, 6. I have tough time with the higher mathematics. 6-0, 1-0. All right, Lorraine.
Yes.
Yes,
Hi.
your proposed timeline.
I'm going to be talking about the suggested timeline for the next annual report. Every year,
Sorry, can we put up page 174, please? There we go. Thank you. Go ahead, Lorraine.
okay. Every year we try to get the report out faster and faster. There's one thing that doesn't change, the audits. Now the audits are not in our control and the material coming out in them is 9 months old when we get it. So it's hard to get that shorter time period, but other things we do have control over. So I looked at the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, looked at the 5 annual reports, and in that little chart it says when we had the audit presentation, when CBOC approved it. And you can see that what we were, at the beginning, they had 3 and 4 month, or 3 months. That was good. And then the next 2 years, it was 5 months. And then the last 2 years, it's been 9 months. Now, 9 months might be coronavirus. One time we didn't have a March meeting this year, so we couldn't get the audit report until after that. And a lot of times we've been waiting till get the audit report before we even start this report. So Anton gave a suggestion the last time that we try to shorten it up a bit. And our committee went in and we looked at it and we saw we have a lot of material after the January meeting. We've got the financial reports, most of them. They're a month behind, so December's comes out in January. We have Lewis's reports up to December of that year, so we'd have that material available. A lot of material is just repeat material, like the history of the CBOC, the different audits that we've had before. So, and then there's some things like even with the audits, you might just have tab on the last month, the last year's audit. You know, there's not that much to do with it. So there are 2 things that may hold us up, and one is the tax rate. That always comes out in September. Now that would be the September of the next year, so that would hold us up. And on our schedule this year, they're talking about having the FAI report coming out in June. But everything else we should have earlier. So what we propose to do is on the next page, you'll see a schedule. Could we have the next page, please? Yeah, you see the schedule here. In January, we're saying, let's establish who's going to be on the committee, the subcommittee. And then in February, we'll assign tasks like Sally did last time. If there's any areas of the report that you would like to work on, please let us know. As far as establishing who's going to be on the subcommittee, I volunteered to be the chairman. I was the co-chairman and sort of chairman in learning this time. And John, it was his first time on. He did an excellent job and he volunteered to go on again. So we'd like to have one more person. Anton has showed interest. And if there's anyone else, please let us know. And in January meeting, we'll establish who's going to be on the subcommittee. February, we'll assign the tasks and we'll distribute revision 1, which would be our AR 2019, and you can start auditing it. You can start editing it. And so then we'd have March and April be editing. Now we took the extra month of April because the audit comes out March 20th, and that's pretty late for us to be ready for the April meeting. So we figure we'll spend 2 months getting the report in condition, and then in May, present it for any comments. We can talk individually with the people giving comments, so we can arrange it all that, and then hopefully approve it in June. Now about the 2 items that we're missing, we could, as you see in the first chapter there, John suggested just putting it out later as a supplement. Also, if we get the June report from the FAI, we can put that out later too, but it won't hold up the whole report for those. So that's what we're suggesting doing. One of the things in January we want to try to work on is getting a Zoom account for the CBOC, because up to date, we've been having, Sally has been using her personal account. And so we would, you know, she's not going to be the chairman of the committee, so we need the CBOC, and it's good. We can use it for training purposes. We can use it for other committee meetings. If, and there are several things. It's $150 a year to have it. So we're asking Lewis to ask the board to get us that on our budget. So this is the proposal we're having. This is more or less informational. I don't think you have to vote on it, but I'm just giving you a highlight of what's coming up. So over this next month, think of an area you might be interested in looking into. Everybody's going to look into one area anyway. And because it is a full committee report. So that's, any questions?
Actually, I'll start off the discussion on this. When it comes to the Zoom account, as soon as you brought that to my attention, I jumped on it and sent an email to Lewis, and I followed up with a telephone call just the other day, giving him the opportunity to figure out how to accommodate our needs on there. I mean, the district has a lot of Zoom accounts, and he says he's going to talk to Tracy Logan to try to find out what can be done. And when I'm done talking here, maybe he can address that particular issue. As far as the makeup of the subcommittee, the chair actually appoints members of the subcommittee. I'm pretty loose. If you want to do it, just say, yeah, I want to do it, and you're appointed. And the same thing with the chair on there. If somebody wants to volunteer for the chair. You got a new CBOC member there? On that. But something I did proposed actually 3 or 4 years ago is that instead of waiting until all these reports come out to start on our AR, that we actually start in January and start gathering up the data that we are going to need, the different reports that we're going to need, the different photographs that we're going to need, because instead of trying to do it all at once, and having a massive chore, you start accumulating all this stuff so that over the 12-month period immediately preceding the time that you start to assemble the annual report. Because as it stands right now, each individual item on our agenda packet, you can download it directly from Google Drive as it doesn't have the page numbers on it. It's just the independent item on there. So you'll be able to get that in case you wanted to copy and paste on there. But I mean, it's up to the audit subcommittee on how they do things, but I'm 100% in favor of shortening the timeline. I never liked the idea that we're looking at an annual report a year to a year and a half after the work was actually done. That's yesterday's newspapers. Nobody really cares about that kind of stuff. But I do have a problem with coming out with a supplemental part of any annual report. Because once you come up with the annual report, that's what people are going to have. That's what people are going to download onto their computers. That's what's going to be recognized, and not another revision, 5-6 months down the road. And I have to ask this question. It's a rhetorical question on here. I mean, like you mentioned, the tax rates don't become available until September. Then I've got to ask the question, just how critical are these tax rates to include in the annual report? You're weighing the value of a nearly complete annual report that we're able to put out after 4 or 5 months, as opposed to one that has those tax rates in it 9 or 10 months after we start putting it together. Again, that's a question that the committee will have to work on to try to come up with an answer on. Anybody else have any comments? Or no, okay, maybe Lewis, you can touch on that Zoom. Do you have any update on that you can give us at this time?
Yeah, Don, we do. So we have discussed this with the IT department, and the resolution really is that we're going to go ahead and, instead of Zoom, it's going to be a Google Meet you'll be able to use. It'll be tied to a CBOC email account. Sylvia will be the one that will manage that, so if there's meetings that need to be scheduled, she doesn't have to attend them, but if you just drop an email or a committee member drop an email to her or a phone call, she can set up that on the calendar for the folks, and the Google Meet will be there for them to use.
Does that sound like it's going to work out okay for the committee?
Just one question on that. Is that basically one of the other big things with the report is the Google Docs part of it, and to be able, being able to, as we write a draft, control that draft so that the only ones that can change it are the designated committee members. And then, of course, it can also be used for the other members of CBOC to comment on that draft report when it's put out there. Does your proposal include something like that?
So Louis, let me touch in on that. The Google Doc is completely separate than the Google Chat. And we've been using the Google Doc independent of the school district. There's no account necessary. Well, I should say, if it's under Sally right now, it's not that hard to set up a new one. That's easy enough. But that is independent of this Google Chat. That's what it's called. Google Chat.
I asked that question just because I've been using this, and my historic experience has been with Microsoft 360, which sets up, you have your own email accounts and the organization, and it's all very secure and very controlled. But
So
okay.
you would do that outside of the Google Meet platform. The Google Meet platform would just be it would facilitate the meetings for you so that you could meet, but then you can present any document you want through that platform.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to make a statement about that because John, you've raised a very important question. And I agree with Dawn that it will not be difficult at all to set up a Google Doc account, or if necessary, outside of mine, in just that it would operate just exactly the way that it did this time around in the last several years. But it really is important that the subcommittee and the chair of the subcommittee, of the annual report subcommittee, be able to control access to those various versions. Although I see here that the plan is only to have one version, but regardless, it has to be controlled. And so to stay in alignment with the Brown Act, the committee has to control that access. I don't see how it could be done any other way. And so
Nobody's suggesting anything different.
I know. And so I'm just saying, don't suggest it because it won't work. So anyway, all right, that's my 2 cents.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay, but I go back to the question to the new chair, Lorraine. What Louis has just suggested on the Google Chat? But you think that'll work for you? Okay. You still there, Lorraine?
She's muted.
I can't even see her picture.
There we go.
All right.
I muted it because the dogs were barking at the mailman.
Yeah,
So that sounds good. I'll have to contact Sylvia to see how. Sally's been in control of the Zoom meeting, so I'll have to talk to her about how I get control of it if I send out the line technical things. But it sounds all right to me. How does it sound to you, John?
Oh, the only other thing, the one thing with the Zoom that we have been able to use is Sally will put a copy of the document out there, share the copy of the document with us. And I'm assuming this other system has that ability. And then we also, theoretically, we didn't do it, but we could go in there and make changes while we're discussing it.
Yeah.
But
okay,
it's
that is
would all
on.
go-
collaboration part that would be the one, and then at least being able to put the document up on the screen like we do here. Although I don't think Don controls this, one of the staff members there does. But that's really, and those are things we can look into it as we move forward, I think.
Okay. as far as, again, working on the document itself and sharing the document with each other, that's all done through Google Docs and not through Google Chat. So again, they're independent of each other. So that, again, that's not going to change.
Yeah.
But I'm absolutely sure that this is going to work for you. That you'll be able to.
I think it's a good idea because Sylvia doesn't have to be there, because otherwise the district will be paying an employee just to be there to set it up, so that as long as we have control of setting it up and all, and she just has to put it on the calendar more or less. It sounds good to me.
Okay. And as far as your timeline goes, anybody have any other discussions or comments?
Can I seek the mercy of the CBOC really quickly and
Okay.
say something? I'm so sorry. So the annual report looks fantastic. I promised that I would always send my notes. I never sent them. I've looked through them and everything has been covered. There are just 2 instances where a school name is spelled wrong. There's 1 extra period, and then there's 1 point of clarification. And I know you guys already approved the report, and I'm sorry I didn't do this when I was supposed to, but would it be okay to identify those quickly for the sake of this really, really amazing report, having those minor clerical revisions made? I'm so sorry.
Sure.
I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle some holy water on your suggestion and say, let's go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay, so
we view this as a content approval. And then if there's a period here or whatever, we'll make those types of changes.
Yeah, we've got to do all the
Content.
formatting yet.
Yeah.
All right,
do you
well,
want me to just stay with you right now, or do you want me to just send an email?
Why don't you send an email?
I will. This time I promise I'll send it. There's 4 bullets on it. They are all minor clerical. I think your report is fantastic. I'm sorry I didn't send it sooner.
It's okay. You're a little
You're
busy.
forgiven.
Thank you.
okay.
Need a little bit of extra grace this year, and I really appreciate it.
All right, let's go ahead and go on to the consent calendar items, starting with items I. Item J is being pulled off. We'll address it in just a few minutes. We've got item I, which is the adoption of the minutes, and item K, the approved recommendation log. If there are no questions or comments, we'll just go ahead and accept those as presented. And Anton requested that the CBOC member information request log, which is page 192, be pulled. So I'll turn that over to Anton. Tell us why you wanted to pull it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I'm specifically referring to page 195, request 147. This is a request that I made 2.5 months ago. I think it's unacceptable to me to have to wait 2.5 months under the Brown Act. If I had made the request, the district would have been required to give me a response within 10 days as to when the information would be available. So here I am as a member of an oversight committee. I make a request 2.5 months ago, no acknowledgement of the request, no response to the request. I think this is unacceptable. I would go to page 196, refer to request 149. That was made 1.5 months ago. Again, I think this is unacceptable. I would request that the chairperson bring this to the attention of the district.
Well, we got the district sitting right across the table from us here, so maybe they can explain, try to give us an explanation on the record. Other than that, Louis, is there a reason why this has been delayed?
So we'll do some follow-up with our internal auditor to see if we can get you the answer on 147.
And then just a point of clarification on item 149. So we are providing now a 3rd page to our AP checklist, which provides what the payroll FTE amount is by position, and then what the time card adjustment is by position, and then what the adjusted amount is that is charged for each person. And so that is something that we're now providing as standard on all of our reports. And so for Records Act Request 149. Is this request for something in addition to that information?
Yes, the request was specifically for July 2019 timesheets and worksheets to use to calculate the July payroll adjustments. Yeah, I do appreciate the fact that you have now provided a monthly report that adjusts for the timesheets. But what I'm looking for on 149 is the actual backup documents for July.
Okay, Melissa, does that sound doable?
Yes, I'll have to see what else we have in addition that we're able to provide.
How about on these two items that I get an update by the end of the week? That sound fair?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. That way we don't have this, a repeat of this next month. Okay. That work for you, Anton?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then let's go ahead and move on to item L, membership. And then item M, the membership roster. On the membership, you can see who has been here for over the past 12 months. The report that we're going to get next month, that bottom line on there, the Board of Education liaison, really won't be applying anymore because they will have to decide whether they want to have a board liaison and who to appoint to it when they reorganize at the beginning of the year. By they, I mean the Board of Education. But if you look at page 208 with the membership roster, you're seeing a sea of colored cells.
Wait a sec, Don, let her get it there.
It's a little bit of a challenge because the page number that you type in at the top is 4 pages past, so you have to ask for that math again.
All right. All right, Lorraine, your hand is up.
I just wanted to say if you could say what page you want her on and give her time to get to it before you start talking.
Okay, that's fair enough. But again, you're seeing a sea of, what's that called, salmon? Those are the vacant positions. Yeah, we had a resignation at the end of last week. Our longtime secretary, outstanding CBOC member, and bane to the annual reports subcommittee, Mac Moore, resigned as of last Friday. So we've got a vacancy there. We are down to 7 members, or 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 members. That's not very many. That's the bare minimum that the law allows. So I'll be redoubling my efforts, going back to city councils and neighborhood councils, municipal advisory committees, next doors. I'll talk to the patch again. They've never been very responsive in the past, but it doesn't hurt to try again. I'll go to the county supervisor. We'll see what we can do to try to drum up some support. But each of you has your own networks as well. So reach out, let people know we need more volunteers on here. Now, I know one of the problems on the annual report subcommittee is that you can't have even half of our members serving on your committee. Well, with only 7 people, that means your committee's down to only 3. We get back up to 17, and then you can have 8 people to spread out the work. So it's for all of our best interests, we are able to get more people involved with that.
Don, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, you can.
I think you're down to 2 on that annual report, because if our problem was talking to somebody else and bringing them into our committee meeting. If we got over a quorum when we brought somebody extra in to have a discussion, then we were violating the Brown Act. So we already have 3, and that was when a quorum was 4, if I remember correctly. At least it was at one time.
The quorum is 4 right now, so you can have 3 people.
Okay. Okay. So a quorum with 7 is 4 still?
It's
Gotcha.
50% plus 1.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Don, with the vacant position for the PTA guardian, would Lupe be able to fill that role?
I
He's one of the
tried
required.
reaching out to her several times and I did not get a response. Maybe if she's still here, she can. Lupe,
Yes, Don.
are you still have a parent of a student in our school district, and where you might be able to transfer your position?
I am a parent, but it says parent or guardian and PTA. I am not PTA.
Could we, Don,
Yeah.
could we suggest maybe Maisha? She's the president of a PTA.
Well, we'll suggest anything, and we'll also reach out to the Bayside PTA.
Yeah.
Good.
If we have to, if Maisha was agreeable, she could switch from parent or guardian to parent or guardian and PTA, and then Lupe could be the parent or guardian, and we'd have our required number.
They're both good suggestions. We'll talk about that offline. See what we can do on that. Okay. Well, we'll get it taken care of. I mean, it was just 8 months ago that I switched from being a Richmond representative to being a senior representative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that I'm a senior, I look for all those senior discounts that nobody seems to be offering them. So I think I got cheated on that deal. But we've been playing musical chairs on this to accommodate, to stay on top. And I appreciate the fact that Lewis is on top of it and reminding us all the time on these things. Okay. Anything else on the membership of the membership roster?
Yeah. Don, what is the status of Jason, and what is the status of the school board? Because the facility committee has to present it to the school board.
I'll let Lewis touch on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're looking to try to bring these updates to the January board. So as soon as we get direction whether we're going to have the facilities committee, we should know, and then we can bring these applications forward. If there's not, we'll figure out a way to make that happen.
And has Jason put in his papers?
Long time ago.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah. And Sally's recently put in her papers.
Yes. That's
Okay,
good.
so, I mean, they need to put a stamp of approval on her as well. Okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
but and just, Don, I think you know this, but I'm not going to be on the annual report committee. I will be happy to contribute to the annual report, my share, my section, whatever get assigned, but I won't be on the committee.
I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else? All right. We're on item N for Nancy, the chairperson report. Now you've got a copy in the agenda packet of the chairperson report. Hang on a minute. I got 5 clipboards in front of me, trying to figure out which one is which. I've got some comments here. When I reported for the CBOC at last Wednesday's meeting, I reported on the many efforts to minimize the impact of the CBOC on the bond program. Over the past couple of years, we've seen board members and some staff members try to eliminate the CBOC, to allow us only to meet once per year, to deny us access to the auditors, to staff, and to the school sites, prohibit us from having our own bylaws, eliminate board liaisons, shut down our efforts to update the board policy pertaining to the CBOC, reduce the number of CBOC members to only those that the law requires, deny the CBOC access to their website, eliminate joint meetings with the Board of Education, deny us the ability and right to communicate with the public we represent, and deny the CBOC time at board meetings to report to the board and the public. You seeing a trend here? Not very positive when it comes to transparency. This report that I gave last Wednesday was not popular with some members of the board and others. On Wednesday, the new Board of Education will be sworn in and will be heading in a new direction. And by the way, at least a few minutes ago, we had 2 of the new board members that were hooked into this meeting. Trustee Jamila Smith-Folds is still with us, and Leslie Rector was a few minutes ago. I appreciate both of them showing up. But I think we may learn very quickly whether we'll be moving into a period where the board will be working with the Citizens Oversight body or whether the board will work to stifle us. If you know anyone out in the real world, perhaps you can ask them to contact the board so they can lobby for the CBOC. And of course, I encourage all of you to lobby for the board, or to the board. And whomever is chosen to serve as the president of the board for the next year, that person will be driving the bus. That means that person decides that what gets on the agenda and even what can be discussed at the board meetings, so that board members need special attention from us if we want to preserve the CBOC. New board members often want to put their fingerprint on things, so we should expect things to be proposed right away, possibly even Wednesday. The ranks of the CBOC is at an all-time low, so we all need to redouble our efforts to find new recruits. I'll send out my emails and letters once again to see if I can stir up interest. There's plenty of work to be done, but precious few of us to do the work. We all have full lives that occupy our time. Some of us have day jobs. Some have families to take care of. Some have spread themselves thin, attending multiple meetings and serving on a wide variety of boards and commissions. Many of us are getting on in age and our stamina just isn't what it used to be. My point here is that we need more members for better representation of the 228,000 residents of West County and to do the work in front of us. We just heard from the annual report committee, and I think they will attest to how difficult it is to meet and keep the committee size down so they're not candidates for Brown Act prison. If we have more CBOC members, we can recruit more CBOCers to serve on that committee, thus making it easier for the committee to tackle the many parts of their report. Some of our detractors have told me that one reason we need to reduce our numbers to only the mandated 7 members is that it will save the district a lot of money. I had to remind these people that we meet virtually these days. The district isn't printing out copies of the agenda packets, so there's no additional cost there. There's no district cleanup of our living rooms and offices after our meetings. The cost for a handful of Zoom attendees is pretty much the same as 2 handfuls of Zoom attendees. So where is the additional cost coming from? There were also complaints that with my monthly reports, I spend too much time complaining that we need help in soliciting volunteers to serve. One of them actually told me, not my job. There were also complaints about wasting board members' time by having a board liaison to the CBOC, even though that was something that was approved by the board and the board policy. I was told that there's no need to have a board member attend because staff will tell them everything they need to know. No offense to our staff, but I don't think that's an accurate assessment of how things really work. And instead of reporting to the board and the public at an open meeting during the evening hours, it's been suggested that if we have to present a report, maybe it should be at the facilities meeting held during the middle of the workday, and hope that 1 or 2 board members attending that meeting give a full report back to the full board and the public. If they're giving a full report back to the board and the public at a regular board meeting, wouldn't that take pretty much the same amount of time as if the CBOC chair presented the report at the board meeting? It might save 1, possibly 2 minutes, but that's it. That is, of course, if the secondhand report accurately reflects what was reported at the facilities meeting and hasn't been too badly censored. Following that line of thinking, instead of hosting a full 5-hour board meeting, perhaps the presentations and discussions can be held offline, and the board could then take 10 minutes of the public's time to summarize what was said and present it so everyone can be done with a public board meeting in time to watch Wheel of Fortune. What we're seeing is a continued effort to silence the CBOC and to minimize the oversight by the public. We often hear that old adage that those who forget the past are destined to repeat it. Lest people forget the very bad publicity associated with the grand jury report and the forensic audit investigation from just a few years ago, maybe the people running things need to be reminded so we don't have a repeat performance. The CBOC is not the enemy. The board is searching for a new superintendent, and the search firm asked for input from the CBOC. You were all invited to participate. They scheduled a full 30 minutes to hear what the CBOC had to say. In typical fashion, I wrote this information on the wrong day of my calendar and missed that meeting. Another senior moment. Thanks to Anton reminding me after the fact, I sent an 11-page list of things I thought were of importance, focusing largely on the bond program. I also offered to speak with them, so they scheduled me for a 1-hour meeting that lasted 1 hour and 20 minutes. They seemed to appreciate the detail, the specificity, the background information, and analysis of the community, and my frankness. As they told me that they had received more than 4,000 responses to their survey and hosted dozens of smaller community meetings. It seems like this community is engaged and wants to be listened to when it comes to a new superintendent. And lastly, I've had discussions with Greg Vizinu about his generous offer for training sessions. He suggested that it might be best to wait till after the first of the year, so we'll try to schedule things with that. He's got 7 or 8 of them, I believe, but we'll get that going and try to make it happen right after we get situated after the holidays. And with that, I'll take any questions or comments on board report.
Don?
Yes.
Lorraine here. One of I imagine the list of opinions that were negative toward the CBOC is the reason why you wrote on page 210 in your report, the future of the CBC is up in the air right now. That means the relationship, there's no danger of us ever being discontinued. Is that correct?
There is no danger of us being discontinued, but one of the suggestions was that we only be allowed to meet once per year.
Mm.
And that we not be given an opportunity to report to the board or the public.
Mm-hmm.
And that we not have access to the auditors or the school sites or city or district staff.
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure what we could do.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing to do too is we're never going to have a full turnover as much as we are right now. So let's use it like a clean slate and not dwell on what's not being done, but try to get a rapport with these new board members so that we can work together better.
I've been working on that for the past 6 months or so since we found out who was running. It didn't matter who was going to get elected. I mean, even who was running, I tried to develop a rapport with them and help them out as much as possible. I think that I was successful at least letting them know that I am a source of information. And not that you are not sources, but I was talking to them on the phone or in person. So able to meet with them and provide them with information about our bond program and give them perspectives about things that they may not have been aware of. Many of them were very anxious to get that information and they continue to do so. I'm actually having a telephone conversation with Trustee Smith-Folds later this evening. And hopefully I'll be able to speak with a couple of the other trustees tonight too, before they get sworn in on Wednesday. Yeah. Unfortunately, I've got 2 Zoom meetings at the same time tomorrow night, including a marathon city council meeting, where we'll probably have 40 or 50 people speaking on one issue. So I won't have a whole lot of time before Wednesday.
Yeah, my last suggestion is, in your reports, you often say, well, the community is asking me these things, etc. Why don't you try to get them to send an email to the CBOC? Then we have documentation and it might mean more to the board when you can show them that the citizens are writing to us with these questions.
A good idea. I'll give that a try. See if they're willing to do that.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, let's move over to item O, audit schedules. Anton asked that we put this on, so I'll turn things over to Anton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The audit schedule speaks for itself. I would like to speak to the discussion we had at the last meeting on our entrance conference with Ed Bailey, LLP, who is our performance auditor. If you recall, at that time, there was several items that we asked them to provide to us, and those are documented in the minutes for the meeting. 2 hours before the start of this meeting, I received a response from the district in regards to this matter. The response I received was given to the district on November 17th. So the district took a month to give it to me, and they did not give it to any of the CBOC members other than the chairperson. I find that troubling. When we look at the response to the 3 questions, the response are not adequate. The first response was in regards to the fact that on the controller's website, there was no history of the prior audits done by Ed Bailey prior to fiscal year 18. And all they did in the response is told us that information, which we were already aware of. Secondly, we asked how the contracting came about. We are now informed that Tony Wall did work with two of their firm's partners in the past. We're not told anything about how the two proposals were solicited. There were only two proposals. Thirdly, we asked about the Vallejo audit report and the scathing review of the state controller of that report. And the response is, we can go look at the report on the controller's website. Well, we did look at the report. That's why we asked the question. And the final thing is, we asked for the peer review report, and they say in their email they sent to the district, the report is attached, but the district didn't see fit to provide that to the committee. So I'm very disappointed. I would request that the district be asked to firstly send this email that came in a month ago to the full members of the CBOC. Secondly, I would ask that they could provide full responses to those three questions, including giving us a copy of the peer review report that they got over a month ago.
Okay, Louis, is that something we can count on you to take care of?
Well, Don, I'll give it a try and I'll look into it and get back to you.
And get back to me by the end of the week? Just with
I'll
an
see what I
update?
can do.
With an update.
I'll see what I can do, yes.
Thank you. Anton, sorry, Lorraine, I'll get to you in a second. Anton, who sent that email 3 hours ago, or 3 hours before the meeting?
Garfield.
Okay,
But the original email on November 17th went to Romo.
yeah, I understood. I was just checking my emails and I was having trouble finding. Okay, I saw something from Sylvia. Okay, Lorraine, you had a comment.
Yes, during that interview, Anton had asked the gentleman if they had, he was concerned because they hadn't gone out to bid. And he was asking him how they got the contract. And when that hit me, it sounded like, are we looking at fraud here? You know, do all contracts have to go out to bid?
So under the government code, professional services, they're not required to go out to bid. I think it's a best practice to go out to bid, but the specialized services the auditors provide doesn't have to be bid through, but typically can be through an RFQP.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a draft RFQP that was put together that was going to be issued. It didn't end up being issued, and proposals were requested, and then the contract went to the board.
Mm-hmm. Were there more than, did you receive more than one proposal?
I didn't manage the procurement, so we can get some additional details and provide that along in the update that we send this week.
I appreciate that.
Anything else? Anton, anything else from you?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And by the way, I appreciate the schedule. Anton is, I mean, I make it look pretty, but Anton feeds me all the information on there, and I truly do appreciate that. It's you know, my plate is full, overflowing, and so I need all the help I can get. So I do appreciate the stuff that Anton helps with. Okay.
And Don, if I could just point out really quickly, there's a chat that we've received from our new trustee, and I'm not sure if all of our CBOC members know how to see the chat, so I just wanted to take a moment to make sure that everyone does.
Why don't you go ahead and read it for us? Go on record on Zoom.
Okay. So it's from Trustee Smith-Bowles to everyone, and it reads, "Thank you, CBOC members, for all the hard work you do. As I transition from campaigning to governing, I am looking forward to speaking with you and learning more. Please feel free to contact me. My email address is jamila.smith@wccsd.net. That is JAMELA.SMITH@wccsd.net. I wanted to make sure no one missed the message.
I appreciate that. 'Cause, even if we know how to check for the chat, I've got about 4 windows open on my screen, and so I have to open up the chat just to see these things. So it takes up something else. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, Anton, we're on item number P, measure our potential bond issuance schedule.
I'd like to refer to page 215 in the agenda packet, which is a report from the KNN fiscal advisors, which was presented to the school board. This schedule provides a Series A bonds for Measure R, $150 million to be issued 3 months from today. I submit that this is an illegal issuance because it appears the district is going to issue the bonds early before they need the money in order to invest and earn interest. This is called arbitrage and is illegal. You cannot issue tax-exempt bonds prior to needing the money and then invest it so that you can make more money in the investment than the interest costs. Now, either the fiscal advisors were not talking to the school district about the cash flow, or this is an attempt to earn additional interest, which is illegal. That's the end of my report.
Do we have a response from staff?
I would just say, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, at this point in time, I don't believe there's going to be a March bond sale.
Well, then why is it on the schedule? Does it mean the KNN didn't talk to you guys?
This is a financial report, Anton. I would just say that I don't foresee us having a bond sale in March.
Don?
I'm sorry, Louis, then Melissa, hang on. You got Series A, which is scheduled for March of next year, but then Series B is not scheduled for 2 additional years. I'm assuming that the Series A would come before the Series B. Do you have any idea, just asking off the top of your head, not holding your feet to the fire on this, do you have any idea when Series A might be issued?
I don't have at this moment in time to tell you that exact time period when it would be issued.
All right, I will reach out to Dr. Wold and see if he would like to respond to this question and then share it with everybody. Okay, Melissa, you had a question, and then Lorraine. Or comments.
I was just going to say that it does say potential bond issuance, and so we are very familiar with what arbitrage is, and so we do understand the responsibilities that we do have within the 6 months and then the 18 months. And so this is all part of the prioritization process and really understanding how we move forward with Measure R. All of which will also require board approval and direction. And so just in support of what Louis said, I don't think that there's any way that we have an issuance this March. Typically issuances happen at particular times in the year, but we're not going to be ready in the spring. There's still much that we have to do as we seek the community input and then the board's approval on what the implementation of Measure R will be. And so as CBOC members, of course, you've got that front row seat, and we'll continue to bring those updates here to you on a monthly basis. And then I would say, in addition to some of the other items where we're going to provide an update, we're happy to reach out and add that as part of the update that we're providing to you by the end of this week, Don.
Hey, Lorraine, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that probably what Melissa is saying is the truth, but I still think we should send a letter to Dr. Wold, saying, we saw this, would you explain it so that they know we're watching, so that we have it in writing that this is not going to happen.
I said I was going to do that. I will.
Well, you said reach out, but I'd like the committee to send the letter.
Okay, what words in the letter did you want to write?
Well, you can write it, but I'd like to have it sent as a committee document rather than just as the chairman's asking a question.
Fair enough. Anything else on this? Okay, now we get to the real reason we're here today. Item Q, calendar for next year. I've sent you all a copy of, you see it on your screen now, all 12 months, count them, 12 of them there, with the known dates for school board meetings, which go through June only. Okay, they do not have anything on their calendar for July through December. I just went by their normal schedule. And if you know anything about our school district, or our school board, you know that they're pretty loose with the dates for some of their meetings. Even the ones they've locked in right now, they may change them. But they almost always have them on Wednesdays, so we just keep that in mind. The ones in red are school holidays. Obviously, we're not going to meet on those days. And the ones that are kind of pink, well, I'm a union kind of guy, and I swore to attend all my union meetings. If we ever get off of virtual meetings, I need to attend those the second Thursday of the month. So as far as I'm concerned, that's not a date that we want to meet. I'm seeing an awful lot of white cells on there. So if anybody has any dates that they know of, well, I just can't be a part of it, sing forth so we can consider that. Otherwise, we'll just take a look at these things and try to figure out what works best for us. My guess is, and this is just a guess, we'll probably be going virtual meetings at least for the first 6 months of the year, and probably a lot longer than that. I mean, they started getting out the vaccines. They thought that they'd have 40 million vaccines before the end of the year. That accounts for 20 million people. Well, what about the other 320 million Americans? I bet you they're not going to have those the first week of January. It's going to take a long time, and people are still going to be running scared. So I would count on virtual meetings until further notice. So if there's a problem with hosting these meetings at a start time at 2 o'clock, you bring that forward now too, so we can just discuss it. We try to be as inclusive as possible. Right now, this is the CBOC that we have. We cannot try to plan for any future CBOC members. We have no idea who they are, what their schedule is going to be. But we also need to listen to what staff has to say. We have to work within their schedules as well. I know in the past they've told us that the day before a school board meeting really doesn't work well for them. Okay, fine. And that's, we cross that off the list. So I'm gonna put this out here for thoughts right now, discussion. Anybody have any ideas or suggestions? And please, staff, weigh in.
If I could just add one recommendation from staff, it would be that one of the big commitments that we've made and one of the improvements that I'm really proud of is that we're really bringing up-to-date financial information to this committee every month by bringing reconciled financials for month end. And some of you may recall it used to be that you didn't get the financial report till actually 2 months out. And so in order to maintain that commitment, the one thing that we would ask is that we not schedule it for the first week of the month, because that's due to Brown Act posting and reports being finalized internally and reviewed. That first week is the week that the reports are written and then they're internally verified such that they can be provided in time for posting. And so that would just be the one recommendation that I would make on behalf of staff, is we want to make sure that we continue to deliver those timely. I think they're most effective that way. And by not scheduling the meeting the first week, we'll be able to maintain that commitment.
I wanted everybody mentally just cross out the first week of every month. That still gives us about 3 weeks left. Now, how about the second week? We've been doing it pretty much on the second, the Monday of the second week. Does that work for you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Obviously, you take a look at April. That first week has only got 1 day to it. Fortunately, the very next week is a holiday week, so we're still talking about the 12th of April at the earliest that we would be meeting. But does anybody else have any other thoughts?
John?
Yes.
This is Lorraine. I have two. One is that I'm a member of a committee for the California CBOC, and 3 of our committee members are on that committee. We have a standing meeting every Thursday at 5 o'clock. So Thursdays would be not good for us.
That's every week, every Thursday?
Yes. We're doing a membership drive, so we meet just to check it out.
Okay. All right.
Dawn, I can't do every second Tuesday of the month because we have a DLCAP meeting already on the calendar for Tuesdays at 6, second Tuesday of the month. And since you crossed off the first week of the month, then I don't have a problem other than those 2.
All right, we crossed off the first week of the month. We're crossing off the second Tuesday of the month. And quite frankly, I don't think we're going to be looking at Thursdays very seriously, especially if I've got conflict with them. But if your meeting is at 5 o'clock, it just may mean you need to miss the the future agenda items of our meeting, because we've been pretty good by getting done by 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
But we got plenty of other days to consider.
One other thing, Don, is for our annual report, we're going to be giving the edited copy out in May, and I would appreciate to be able to give it out as late in May as possible. So if we could schedule a meeting from the 24th through the 27th, only in May. Otherwise, my personal schedule is fine.
Okay, Dawn, I have to also log off. I'm sorry. Just keep me updated. Any other day is fine with me. Like I said, I have 6 o'clock pending Tuesday meeting, so anything before that'll work with enough time.
You say Tuesday, every Tuesday?
I mean, not every Tuesday, every second Tuesday. I'm sorry, second Tuesday at 6. So anything before that would work.
I mean, I got city council meetings at Tuesday, but considering they frustrate me more than anything else, I don't mind blowing off a Richmond City Council meeting. But on that May, if we hold it in the last week, that's really only 2 weeks between that meeting and the meeting in June.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, maybe holding it on the 17th of May might work for you. Okay. All right. Right now, we've been doing it. What we've been doing? The second Monday of each month. If we continued with that, would that work for everybody?
I think that works.
With the exception of the obvious holiday in October.
I think that works really well, Don.
I'm sorry. Say that again, John.
The schedule we have right now works really well with the tweak here and there.
Yeah. I know a lot of committees like to do it on a specific day of the month. You know, like my union meetings, the second Thursday. It's actually written into our bylaws, second Thursday. But we found that we need to accommodate the needs of everybody here. And so sometimes that may mean like that May meeting, tweak it a little bit. So I'm just going to propose that we go with the second Monday of each month, except in May that we do it on the 3rd, which is the 17th.
Mm-hmm.
And in October, we do it on the 3rd, which is the 18th.
Sounds good.
Does that work for everybody? Do I hear
Yes.
any complaints? Now's the time to unmute yourself if you're going to complain. Staff okay with that?
I think we're fine.
Okay. And I'll revise this schedule and maybe somebody at staff can talk to the webmaster to put it on the district's calendar. I notice a lot of the other committees have their meetings on the calendar. It'd be nice to have ours on there, so that way, hopefully we don't have any serious conflicts. That work for everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Now we got the, thank you all very much for your help with that. We got the future agenda topics. Anybody have any future agenda topics that they would like brought up?
Yes, Don, this is Anton.
Yes, sir.
I would like to put on the next agenda Board Policy 9270, Conflict of Interest. This policy is on the board agenda for approval this Wednesday. It does not implement the Forensic Audit Recommendation 76, which the board approved should be implemented. And I'm very concerned about that because the preces to the agenda item suggests that it does implement the Forensic Audit Recommendation 76, and it does not at all. So I think this is a concern from the forensic audit on conflict of interest. I would like that on the next agenda.
I will put it on the next agenda, but if I could just a recommendation to everybody, take a good close look at the preces, take a look at item number 76 on the FAI, and email the new Board of Education. Do it tonight, because they don't really check anything on Wednesdays because it's such a full day, especially those of them that have to work. And then sign up to speak and let them know. Perhaps this is something that they should revisit at a January meeting, for instance, if Anton is correct on this. Okay.
Anton, would you just repeat what you said about the policy number?
Policy, well, it's agenda item, it's on the consent calendar, item C5, and it's
Okay.
board bylaw 9270. The other issue is they're putting it on consent. Board amendment takes 2 readings. The reading they had on November 4th, it was tabled. So I think it's flawed in the fact that they're now considering this a second reading, which is wrong. In addition, there's missing attachments on the resolution. So the whole thing is flawed.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else for future agenda items? Okay, I hate doing this to you. Normally we take full 3 hours for our meeting, but we're at 2 minutes or 2 hours and 12 minutes right now. If there's no objection.
Don, can I really quickly?
There's that objection.
I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
Just before we adjourn, I want to thank Mac. He was the CBOC representative on the implementation task force, and I think he's been a very involved CBOC member, and I know that this was his final meeting and he's not voting tonight, but just before the meeting ended, I just wanted to say thank you for his service.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I try to convince him otherwise. He's a grown man. He knows what's best for him. I still think he's wrong. He should stay with us. But now it's on record twice in just a period of 1 week. Thank you. Also, just for information, Jason Lindsay would normally be attending this meeting, even though he's not a member. His commitment was there to attend the meeting, but all week long he is in contract negotiations, and those things go from early in the morning until late at night. And so he emailed me and apologized. Just want to make sure you all knew that, yeah. Otherwise, he would be here. Okay, Sally.
And as John points out, there's a lot of critical work that still needs to be done on the implementation task force committee. And so we no longer have a CBOC representative, and so that's potentially a future agenda item for the CBOC to consider. Sorry.
Now, unfortunately, it's flawed. The way it was written up, it's flawed. It doesn't say that the CBOC appoints somebody. It says that person is a CBOC member. You know, they were supposed to just submit an application to the board, and the board was supposed to select who that person would be. I would love to make Mac an honorary CBOC member, only for the purposes of continuing to meet on that committee, because any of us that are new on there, we just don't have the institutional history or knowledge that Mac has on there. Even if it's just making him a member, once per quarter for an hour. You see what we can do on that. Okay. Sally, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I want to add to what others have said about working with Mac. It's really been quite a pleasure over the last 4 years, I think, that I've been on the CBOC. I think Mac typifies what we would hope we would see in the broader community in terms of how you speak to people that differ. Mac and I differed typically and often, and yet he always spoke with respect and always spoke with sensitivity. I can't tell you how much I appreciated that, especially in this world that we find ourselves in, where when people differ, they seem to need to demonize or get angry at somebody. And I never felt that from you, Mac, and I really, really appreciated it. And I think that we worked out a lot of details as we went along. So thank you very, very, very much for everything that you did on this committee and between the two of us. Thank you.
Anton.
I would like to echo Sally's sentiments. I keep a log of every CBOC secretary since the start of the CBOC. I've known most of them, worked with most of them, as I do keep a historical log of the chairpersons. I would say that Mac is probably the most outstanding secretary of the CBOC in the 20-year history of the CBOC. And I know that we worked very closely together on the amendments to the bylaws, which we haven't accomplished as yet, but I thought it was a very collaborative, working together, resolving issues and coming up with a consensus document that we brought forward both to the CBOC and to the board. I think his minutes, if you go back and look at the minutes over the 20-year history of the CBOC, you'll see the quality of the minutes is outstanding. So again, my kudos to Mac Moore. I think he's the most exceptional secretary that the CBOC has ever had. On another matter, in regards to Don, your discussion on the representative to the task force, if your judgment is that the CBOC is not going to make a recommendation, would it be appropriate for any of those members that might be interested to send an email to Melissa or Lewis? How could we make this work?
Well, I wholeheartedly, I encourage anybody and everybody that wants to take Mac's place on that committee to, send in a letter of request to the board.
But the letter should go to the district because it's not going to be a CBOC agenda item, as I gather. Because the last time it was a CBOC agenda item.
I'm sorry, Lewis.
Let's pull that up and see how it went last time, Don, and we'll get back to you. Since we have a whole bunch of follow-up items, sounds like we have one more to the list.
Yeah, I actually did what you suggested, Anton, and I sent in my application to the board, and I never heard back from the board. So I don't know if they got it. I don't know if they just ignored it or they just rejected it out of hand.
The CBOC was in the minutes of the CBOC.
Well, I'm talking about 3 months before it came up before. As soon as it was announced, I sent in my letter of application.
Well, they probably didn't want to overburden you.
Yeah, I bet that's what it was.
And you know they love you, so.
Yeah, concerning two out of those 5 voted not to accept my application to the CBOC.
Oh, but you had 3.
That's all I needed. So, okay. Lorraine, you had your hand up. And Sally, you going to speak again? You got your hand up. Okay, I see Lorraine's hand is down, so
No, on my hand stopped. I was just waiting to see if Sally was going to answer. I just wanted to add to, I was going to say the same thing that Anton did about Mac. I already told you how much I appreciated your input in the annual report, but when I think of, I've been a secretary a couple of times, and I know that's not a job I would ever want. It's not. You have to know the shorthand, or I don't know how you do it, Mac, but you do capture a great deal of the meeting, and then you send out for approval early. So I think you've done an excellent job, and I really appreciate it. So good luck.
Thank
Yeah.
you all. I'm kind of squirming here with all this praise, but I'm going to work hard to support John so that I can become the second best secretary in the eyes of Anton. So, John, if you need any help for the first couple meetings, just I'll send you an email and we can help you out.
I've always valued and treasured Mac as a member of the CBOC. What he did as a secretary was just icing on the cake. With my own union, I was recording secretary for 10 years. With minutes to a meeting, the minutes should not be verbatim, but they should, if a person that did not attend the meeting were to pick up the minutes, they should be able to read them and have a reasonable expectation to understand what happened at the meeting. And that's what Mac provided on us. In my own union back in the late 70s, we had a secretary that the FBI took our minutes and brought them back the next day, so they couldn't make any sense out of them. Which, considering the head guy in our union, that was exactly what he wanted. Because about a year later, he was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder. Yeah, big time union politics there. So, Ms. Foles, Ms. Smith, whatever. Trustee.
I just wanted to say goodbye to everyone. I have to log off onto another meeting, but it was nice to be at your CBOC meeting, and I will see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you very much. And if nobody has any questions or problems, at 4:27 p.m., we are adjourned.